This movie happens in ancient China during winter. There's this not-so-nice king named King Gong, and he's up to no good. One day, King Gong decides to spill the beans to his pals about a hidden treasure up in the snowy mountains, but you need a map to find it, and this map is locked up tight in an iron chest, and a tough warrior named Hu Yidao is guarding that chest. However, Hu Yidao was like the toughest guy around during those ancient days. Nobody could take him down except for this Meow Renam character. But King Gong has his eyes on that treasure map, and he knows he can't beat Yidao in a fair fight. So he comes up with a sneaky plan to get rid of Yidao instead. King Gong had these guys named Tu Bai Sui and Bao Shu, and he told them to make Meow Renam and Yida fight each other. Tao Bai and Bao Shu didn't stop there. They got their own crew together and did something pretty terrible. They had Meow Renam's wife killed, and then they put her head in a box. They made it look like Yidao wrote a letter to Meow Renam, even though he didn't. When Meow Renam got that box with his wife's head and the fake letter, he got super angry. He rushed off to attack Yidao, thinking Yidao did something awful. But it was all a dirty trick by Tao Bai, Bao Shu, and King Gong. So the next day, there was no way to avoid a big fight between Yidao and Meow Renam. But in the middle of their battle, things got really messy. They both started coughing up blood because their swords had some poison on them. Turns out someone had played a nasty trick on them. King Gong's crew had coated their swords with poison. Later in the evening, those troublemakers Bao Shu and Tao Bai and their gang did something really terrible. They set fire to the whole village and even killed the villagers. They were on the hunt for a key and a map that Yidao had hidden, but they couldn't find them no matter how hard they looked. Tao Bai got so mad that he chopped off the hand of one of Bao Shu's students, a guy named Laosi. After that, Bao Shu and Tao Bai told their students to search for the key and map in the snowy forest. But the forest was all foggy, and they couldn't find those precious things either. At the same time, there was a young boy who was running scared in the thick snow fog, trying to avoid bumping into them. Fast forward 10 years, and finally, they got their hands on that treasure map they'd been hunting for so long. It was swiped from a bunch of street bandits. This guy, Tao Bai's new student Guayu, decided to take them on all by himself. However, this Guayu was no joke. He fought those bandits like a pro and left a bunch of them really banged up with his awesome sword skills. Shortly after, this girl Kane Wen, who's one of Bao Shu's students, and another guy named Ji, who's from Tao Bai's gang, joined in to help Guayu out. While they were in the middle of the fight, Guayu realized that one of those bandits on a horse had grabbed the treasure map and was making a run for it. Lucky for them, Guayu managed to catch up and snatch that map right back. So, in the evening, Guayu paid a visit to King Gong with that precious treasure map in hand. King Gong was thrilled to finally have it and wasted no time. He declared that whoever got their hands on the treasure would be given the fancy title of Marcus. This Marcus title was a big deal, something you could pass down to your kids and grandkids if you were a big shot who protected the country. The very next day, Bao Shu and Tao Bai set out on their treasure hunt adventure with their students in Tao. Bao Shu had his 2 students, Kane Wen and Laosi, while Tao Bai had 4 students with him, Ji, Guayu, Zhao Yunyang, and Zhang Niang. They trudged through the forest for hours, and then they decided to take a break at an inn to recharge. While they were having dinner at the inn, Laosi seemed a bit down in the dumps. He was feeling disappointed because it was Tao Bai's group that had the job of guarding the treasure map. Even though Bao Shu's gang hadn't actually seen the map, they still didn't know the exact path to get there. Then a guy who worked at the inn overheard their talk about the treasure and came over to Tao Bai. He said finding the treasure wouldn't be a walk in the park because there were these flying foxes guarding the snow mountains. He told them that no one who ventured to the snow mountain ever made it back safely because those flying foxes were actually the spirit of Yidao reincarnated. After hearing that spooky warning from the old innkeeper, Tao Bai got all worked up. He grabbed the old guy by the neck and started threatening him to tell about where that treasure chest key was hidden. Turns out, the inn was where it was stashed, according to the info he had. But that old servant was a tough nut to crack. He didn't want to give up the goods, so Tao Bai did something pretty ruthless. He slashed the poor guy's neck, and, well, that was the end of him. After that, Tao Bai and Bao Shu told their students to split up and search for the treasure chest key. In G, one of the students stumbled upon a key that was pretty common back in the ancient Chinese days. He used it to unlock a secret locker and found that treasure chest key. He was all smiles, thinking he hit the jackpot. Out of nowhere, Guayu attacked in G with a piece of wood, and things got messy. Right at that moment, Kane Wen showed up and saw the whole thing go down. Now let's jump back in time a bit. We find Guayu working as a gold miner in a cave. One day he struck gold, but he didn't want to share it with anyone. Unfortunately for him, a guard caught wind of his little secret, and that landed Guayu in some serious trouble. They tied him to a chair with ropes around his neck, and whenever he denied his theft, those guards would yank on the ropes, choking him. Lucky for Guayu, he was pretty strong and managed to break free from those ropes. He gave those guards a run for their money and made a daring escape. After running quite a distance from the gold mine, he stumbled upon an old hut and decided to hide out there. That's where he crossed paths with King Wen for the very first time. She offered Guayu a chance to join the group led by Bao Shu, and that's when things started to take a different turn for him. So, when Guayu was first offered the chance to work with others, he said no. He wasn't too keen on teaming up with anyone. But when the horse guards from the gold mine showed up, he changed his tune real quick and said yes. Right after he agreed, King Wen didn't waste any time. She got rid of one of those horsemen to help Guayu out. When King Wen brought Guayu to meet Bao Shu, things took a surprising turn. Bao Shu told Guayu to kill Sing Wen and even tossed a dagger his way. But instead of hurting the person who had helped him earlier, Guayu did something unexpected. He decided to stab himself with the dagger. After all that, Bao Shu told King Wen to take care of Guayu and handed him over to Tao Bai. So, back at the inn, everybody gathered in one room to figure out who was behind Jin Yi's murder. Tao Bai had his suspicions on Guayu because he was the first to find Jin Yi's body. But Bao Shu decided to change the topic real quick. He said it didn't really matter who did it because they already got their hands on the treasure chest key they'd been after. After everyone else left the room, Guayu went up to Tao Bai and shared his theory. He thought that maybe Jin Yi got taken out by those flying foxes guarding the snow mountains. See, their group was hunting for treasure in those mountains, and it seemed like those foxes might have wanted to split them up by getting rid of Jin Yi. Hearing that, Tao Bai told Guayu to swipe that treasure chest key from Bao Shu's gang. Kane Wen didn't tell about who killed Jin Yi because she was in on the plot to take him out. Yep, King Wen and Guayu teamed up to clean up the scene so nobody would suspect them. In the evening, Guayu had a secret meeting with Bao Shu and King Wen up on a hill, and Tao Bai had no clue about it. Guayu had a plan to double-cross Tao Bai. He talked about Tao Bai's schemes and revealed that Zhao Yunyang was the one who brought the key. Bao Shu got the lowdown from Guayu, and then told him to take care of Zhao Yunyang. Before King Wen left with Bao Shu, she gave Guayu a necklace that belonged to his adoptive father. It was like a symbol to show that he was now part of Bao Shu's crew. The next day, both Bao Shu's gang and Tao Bai's gang kept trudging through the forest in the snowy mountains. Before they ventured into the woods, Tao Bai had this idea to stick his dagger into a tree trunk as a marker. You know, just so they wouldn't get lost. But no matter how far they walked, they kept ending up on the same path. It was like they were going in circles. And then, to make matters worse, a thick fog rolled in, and they couldn't even see each other. When Zhao Yunyang went off on his own for a bit, Guayu swooped in and launched an attack. They had a pretty fierce fight, but in the end, Guayu managed to jump up on a rock and swung his sword to take down Zhao. As the mist started to clear, Bao Shu, King Wen, and Lao Se showed up and walked over to Guayu. Guayu handed over the treasure map he'd snatched from Zhao and said that Zhao had poisoned him and only Tao Bai had the antidote. But Bao Shu wasn't really interested in that antidote stuff. All he cared about was that precious treasure map. Bao Shu, Kane Wen, Laosi, and Guayu followed the map's path, but it led them to a dead end with a bunch of animal bones scattered around. Bao Shu started to question if the map was for real, and that's when Guayu pulled a fast one. He swiped the precious necklace right off Bao Shu's neck. Suddenly, dozens of hyenas showed up and surrounded them. Meanwhile, Tao Bai, Shen Niang, and even Zhao, who was supposed to be dead, were up on a cliff, watching everything. Turns out, Zhao was still kicking because just when Guayu was about to finish him off, Tao Bai jumped in and stopped the sword. Tao Bai was pretty upset with Guayu's betrayal, so he gave him a taste of some poison. Tao Bai did give Guayu a chance to make things right, though. He told him to give Bao Shu a fake map and snatched the treasure key from him within 4 hours after getting the antidote. The scene then returns to the hyena abyss. Bao Shu and the gang were in a real tight spot, trying their best to escape those hungry hyenas. Guayu, King Wen, and Laosi managed to get away from the hyenas, but poor Bao Shu got caught by 3 of them at the same time. Things got pretty brutal, and Bao Shu didn't make it. Guayu and the others decided to leave him behind, as the hyenas tore him apart. After witnessing this horrifying scene, Tao Bai ordered his pals, Zheng Niang and Zhou, to go after Guayu's group and snatch that treasure chest key from them. So, Zhu and Zheng Niang were sent to chase King Wen and Guayu, while Tao Bai himself went after Laosi. But in the middle of the forest, Laosi suddenly appeared from behind Tao Bai and launched an attack. Just before the fight started, Laosi revealed that he wanted revenge because 10 years ago, Tao Bai had chopped off his arm. And now he aimed to take Tao Bai down using the new arm he'd gotten from a skilled healer. Sadly, when it came to fighting skills, Tao Bai had the upper hand over Laosi, and he ended up winning the battle by defeating and killing Laosi. While searching through Laosi's clothes for the treasure key, Guayu showed up from behind and revealed that he had the key. Just as Tao Bai was reaching for it, Guayu swiftly used his sword to take down Tao Bai. Tao Bai was pretty shocked by what Guayu did and seemed puzzled about whose side he was on. After dispatching Tao Bai, Guayu wasted no time. He grabbed the antidote from Tao Bai and drank it before it was too late. Meanwhile, Zhao was still on the hunt for King Wen, and he eventually caught up to her. But instead of killing her, he had some very unpleasant intentions because he was captivated by her beauty. Seizing the moment, King Wen managed to immobilize Zhao using a poisonous bug she controlled, and then she swiftly finished him off with her dagger. So, right after that, Zheng popped up from the top of a tree with the intention of taking down King Wen, and this led to a fierce battle between the two. Unfortunately, Zheng managed to trap her using sharp strings that wrapped around her, making it really hard for her to move. But luckily, just in the nick of time, Guayu showed up and swiftly cut all those strings, setting King Wen free. After a short tussle, Guayu finally got Zheng cornered and took the opportunity to stab him with a sword. As Zheng lay there dying, Guayu revealed his true identity. He's saying that he was actually a flying fox that roamed the snowy mountains. His real name was Hu Fei, and he was Yi Dao's biological son. He survived the chaos in the village and escaped into the snowy mountains with the keys and the treasure map. The scene then briefly shows Guayu paying off a group of bandits to hold onto the treasure map before he eventually took it back. He also purposely left the treasure chest key in an inn so the others wouldn't get suspicious. But just when Guayu had saved Xing Wen from Zheng, out of nowhere, Bao Shu made a surprise appearance and launched an attack on Guayu. Turns out Bao Shu had a centipede in his body that could heal his wounds, so he was able to come back to life. After a real intense showdown between Guayu and Bao Shu, things took a surprising twist. Kane Wen suddenly stabbed Guayu and shoved him into an abyss. She then handed over the key and treasure map to Bao Shu, who seemed pretty pleased with her loyalty. Later that evening, after following the map's directions, Bao Shu and King Wen finally made it to the spot where the treasure was hidden. They entered a cave, and Bao Shu wasted no time sticking that treasure key into a hole in the cave wall. Before long, the snow in the cave started to avalanche, and a strong wind blew in from outside, revealing a whole bunch of gold buried beneath the icy floor. It was quite a sight. Kane Wen had to break the news to Bao Shu, though. She told him he couldn't take the gold, because if he tried to dig it up, the whole floor would give way, and he'd go tumbling into the abyss along with the treasure. Kane Wen knew this because she'd been to that place with Guayu before. After telling about the treasure being a dangerous trap, Kane Wen didn't waste any time. She attacked Bao Shu with a dagger that had poison on it, and he started coughing up blood and went limp. Then, out of nowhere, Guayu showed up right in front of Bao Shu. He went to town on him, stabbing him with his sword until Bao Shu was almost done for. Guayu finished the job by using explosives to send Bao Shu and the treasure sinking into the abyss. Turns out, Kane Wen hadn't really killed Guayu earlier. It was all part of their plan to corner and eliminate Bao Shu. Kane Wen was on board with Guayu because she was Meow Renfeng's daughter. Right from the get-go, they had everything planned out to get revenge on the folks who killed their parents. Later that evening, Kane Wen and Guayu put their final plan into action by using Kane Wen's poisonous insects to take down King Gong. And that's how the movie wraps up, with Kane Wen and Guayu successfully avenging their parents' deaths. So the moral of the story is, when planning a treasure hunt, always double-check if the treasure chest is rigged to trigger an avalanche of gold and doom. And never trust someone with a centipede healing power.